Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Tonight, we're going to see familiar scenes in Montgomery County transported to scenes of drama in a movie. We will also learn that a number of actors and actresses come from this area, with several big-name stars hailing from Silver Spring. Ralph Buglas has directed, produced, and narrated what we will now see of these sites on our theater screen. Ralph has previously spoken at Keese School on other local history topics and has taught lifelong learning classes at American University, Johns Hopkins, and Montgomery College. Please welcome Ralph Buglas.
Thank you. That was a nice introduction for keeping with the theme of movies and theaters. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of Montgomery History, our county's historical society, speaking through its Speakers Bureau, and I wanted to be sure to mention that because in the room and now living here at Asbury is the person who made the Montgomery History Speakers Bureau what it is, Clarence Corky Hickey, who you probably can't see, sitting in the back there. I'm sure many of you know him. The Speakers Bureau is now run by Matt Gagel, Director of Programs at Montgomery History. You may sort of know him because he's the voice behind History Conversations, a Zoom talk every Tuesday. And I mention Matt because he's the one who came up with the clever title here, From Silver Spring to Silver Screen. Mine was not as catchy, but more to the point, movies made in Montgomery County. And now that you've paid your theater admission, a bit of a spoiler alert, there are really no blockbusters here, but still I think you're in for a treat. Arguably, the most well-known movie made in Montgomery County is the Blair Witch Project. Noteworthy in a number of ways, as I'll explain as we get into it. I think the best one is Philomena. It's the only one to garner any Academy Award nominations. And then two with two big-name stars each, Body of Lies and Chances Are. The most recent box office film to be made in Montgomery County, an independent film, A Year and Change. The director grew up in Montgomery County. And then two connected to Rockville's Chestnut Lodge. Maybe you remember, a psychiatric institution for most of the 20th century located in Rockville. This is the earliest movie, Lilith is the earliest movie that I'll talk about. And another big-name star, though very young at the time. And the other one, I Never Promised You a Rose Garden, based on a novel by an actual patient at Chestnut Lodge. And for the Silver Spring connection, as you heard, I'll include a number of stars who grew up there, as well as some others who grew up elsewhere in the county. And because I am speaking here on behalf of Montgomery History, a number of interesting local history connections thrown in along the way. So let's start by running through in more detail the 7 that I just mentioned. Sit back maybe, get your popcorn, and enjoy the show. First, the Blair Witch Project. For each of these, I'll show the Internet Movie Database rating, IMDb, the rating for each of these 7 that I'll show. Now, this one, the Blair Witch Project, it's a little hard to slot into a particular genre. It's definitely horror, but it's presented as a documentary, and many moviegoers thought it was just that, but it's really the fictional story of, it so happens, 3 Montgomery College students setting off into the woods elsewhere in Maryland in search of the Blair Witch, a local legend responsible for the disappearance of many residents over the years.
The search search of the 3 missing Montgomery College students continues in Frederick County tonight.
10 days and thousands of man-hours have been unable to produce any clues.
We have a few leads, a few other options we want to take advantage of, and just try to put together some pieces to this puzzle.
A little soft there, but so the 3 students named Heather, Mike, and Josh, in the story they themselves disappear and only their film footage is found. It's actually done by 2 graduates of a Florida film school, one of whom actually did attend Montgomery College earlier. And even to this day, I think it's the highest grossing independent film shot on a shoestring budget, as you see. And it has since become something of a cult classic. It was hardly scripted, in fact. Each day the actors were just given an outline of what would happen, and then they themselves were filmed and, in fact, spooked by what awaited them. Although you saw that it was set in Burkittsville, which is located in Frederick County, mostly shot in Montgomery County and mostly in Seneca Creek State Park, which is best known perhaps for the Winter Lights Festival, which actually returns the day after Thanksgiving. But in the movie, more remote areas of the park, such as Coffin Rock, and that's where we meet Park Ranger Eric Ledbetter. Unfortunately, he passed away this summer, but he often gave a tour of sites connected to the movie around the spooky time of Halloween.
This is where, in the world of the movie, Heather, Mike, and Josh park the Dodge Omni, set out into the woods, and the first scene they film on their ill-fated journey is the scene here.
And another important scene takes place at Fisherman's Rock.
Heather, Mike, and Josh began their journey with a series of in-person interviews with local folk and townspeople about what they knew of the legend of the Blair Witch. The last of those interviews, the last 2 people who saw Heather, Mike, and Josh alive were the 2 fishermen. Heather, Mike, and Josh interview them fishing in the middle of the creek right before they go on their ill-fated journey into the woods from which they never returned. That interview took place right here on the Fisherman's
And
Rocks,
this
in the middle of Great
spooky,
Seneca Creek,
deserted
Seneca
shed
Creek
also
State Park.
appears. It's actually just up the road on Black Rock Mill Road from Black Rock Mill, one of the last standing mills in Montgomery County. And we had mills all over the county. Ranger Eric's tour actually starts from this spot and goes along this trail, Seneca Bridge Trail. And you can find the whole video of it online if you're interested. All right, next, Philomena. British actress Judi Dench, actually Dame Judi Dench, plays a woman who's been searching most of her life for the son that she was forced to give up when she was sent to a convent to give birth. Steve Coogan co-stars as a journalist who ultimately becomes interested in her story and helps in the search. It's actually based on a true story, nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Actress. Actually, Judi Dench won that award for a different movie. And here are, according to Rotten Tomatoes, profoundly affecting drama for adult movie filmgoers of all ages. It actually has the highest rating of the 7 that I will show here. Play a portion of the trailer. It starts with a breakthrough computer search that the 2 do looking for the son. His name is Anthony. And they encounter a surprising connection to the journalist. It starts with Judi Dench saying, "That's my Anthony." It's a little hard to hear.
That's my Anthony.
I met him.
Where?
At the White House.
You God. What was he like? And did you remember anything he said?
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Might have been hi.
Oh, Martin. I did not abandon my child. He was taken from me.
She's been looking for him. She's spent her whole life trying to find him.
So the son worked in the White House while Steve Coogan, as the journalist, was assigned there. And that brings them to the D.C. area. There's a scene of this bridge. This bridge is actually on Montevideo Road between Potomac and Poolesville. If you cross the bridge, you come to, though not in the movie, Rockland Farms Winery, one of our local wineries. Well, they continue around the countryside. Judi Dench feels the need to confess, so they stop at a Catholic church for confession. This is not a Catholic church. This is actually the church in the old African-American community, western part of the county, the African-American community of Sugar Land. And today, it's something of a museum to commemorate that African-American community. And so the interior of the church was made over to look like a Catholic church with a confessional booth and some Catholic altar objects and statues. Here's a production shot outside the church and a shot of Judi Dench with Gwen Reese. Gwen, unfortunately, has passed away, but she was pretty much the guiding force behind saving this church and commemorating the African-American community there. And notice the scarf that she's wearing. She actually was an extra in the movie, sitting there in one of the pews. A quite climatic scene occurs at this house in Potomac, and it's a rather historic house. It was built by a Civil War veteran in the Army, Captain John McDonald, who later ran for Congress. He was the first Republican congressman from Montgomery County. Up until that point, a Democratic congressman, Democratic Party conservative in those days. Today, the house is owned by Diana and Bill Conway. There's Diana with their daughter. This shot was taken when the movie was shot, and so the daughter's probably out of college now. But Bill Conway, a connection to Montgomery history, he served on our board of directors for a number of years. All right, next, Body of Lies, a film about a CIA plot to catch a Middle Eastern terrorist. So stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Russell Crowe. DiCaprio stars as a CIA operative and Crowe as his contact within the CIA. It's mostly filmed in Morocco, but some scenes are shot in D.C. But scenes involving the CIA headquarters across the river in Langley, Virginia. CIA, of course, top secret, you can't get into the building, so the movie makers had to look for a similar building CIA built in 1963. They came across the river here to Montgomery County to film in this building, built 5 years later. Maybe you recognize it. This is from a postcard. It's the old National Geographic building on Route 28 west of Rockville. Today it serves as our police headquarters, public safety headquarters. So when Russell Crowe is running through the lobby of the CIA, he's actually running through the lobby here of the public safety headquarters. Next, Chances Are, Sybil Shepherd and Robert Downey Jr. It's a romantic comedy in which Sybil Shepherd plays a widow, and Robert Downey Jr. is her much younger reincarnated husband. Here's a clip from the locally produced Paths to the Present video series. It's about our county's history. It's a little soft, but mostly watch in the background there.
Two lovers separated long ago by an untimely death.
Did you catch there in the background the carousel at Glen Echo? Another scene from the movie, walking toward the carousel, and yet another scene. It might look like the carousel in the background there, but look closely, it's actually the old bumper car pavilion, now sometimes a concert site at the Glen Echo site, a cultural center today. And again, a climatic scene occurs in a courtroom, in this case, in which Robert Downey exposes a corrupt judge, which only he knows about from his earlier life as Shepherd's lawyer husband. So there's the scene from the movie. Here's that courtroom today, looks much the same. It's in the old gray courthouse in Rockville. That building recently renovated. It's mostly county offices today, but the courtroom was preserved, and it looks pretty much as it did when the building was first built, 1935. And this courtroom has indeed a lot of historical significance because in 1937, a very young Thurgood Marshall appeared here for a case involving unequal public school teacher salaries. The black teachers paid about half what the white teachers were paid. This case ultimately led to equal pay here in Montgomery County for the teachers, but even more importantly, it was absolutely foundational in the NAACP's whole quest to overturn school segregation throughout the South, as the Supreme Court ruled in the landmark case, Brown versus Board of Education. So that's your history lesson there for that one. A year and change. The most recent one, as I said, shot largely in Maryland, entirely in Maryland, actually, and largely in Montgomery County. One of the most recognizable scenes is in Rockville Cemetery, as this clip from Montgomery County media shows.
The historic Rockville Cemetery serves as the setting for two pivotal scenes in the indie film, and the wet weather just accents the setting's somber tone. Actor Brian Greenberg plays the film's main character, a guy named Owen, who's a vending machine operator.
It's just about a year in this guy's life of slowly healing, slowly figuring it out, and reconnecting with his family and finding love. And it's a really beautiful story.
Rounding out the cast, Australian actress Claire Vanderbloom, Jamie Chung, T.R. Knight, Kat Foster, as well as many local extras.
And another connection is that the director is from Montgomery County.
In 18 days, I think we're going to something like 30 different places. So, and a large chunk of them are here, right here in Montgomery County.
The film's director grew up in Montgomery County and graduated from Wooten High, so he's familiar with many of the film's locations.
I'm just really excited to be able to work with the amazing crew and these really talented actors for this short period of time here in December in Montgomery County.
And the history connection here is Rockville Cemetery, where is buried perhaps the greatest pitching ace of all time, Walter Johnson. He does have a connection to Montgomery County. After he retired from the old Washington Senators baseball team, he moved to Montgomery County and actually served on the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners. That was the governmental body that preceded the county council today. So next, the two movies about Chestnut Lodge in Rockville, starting with 1964, Lilith. And it stars a young Warren Beatty, who is a Korean War veteran returning home, somewhat adrift. He takes a job at a similar psychiatric hospital called Poplar Lodge, which is located not in Rockville, but Stonemont. And he falls for one of the patients, played by Gene Seberg. So a lot of scenes of Montgomery County in this one. The patients go on an outing to Great Falls, walk along the C&O Canal towpath. Even a jousting tournament in Barnesville, of all places.
Is this your lady?
Yes.
Crown our queen of love and beauty.
And there in the background, a lot of townspeople in Barnesville served as extras in this movie. It was a big deal at the time. So again, some scenes from the movie. There's Warren Beatty in downtown Rockville, looking across at the gray courthouse again. And that is not a Metro bus, but DC Transit. Maybe you remember the two-tone green buses. And in the background there, the old Confederate soldier statue, which indeed stood prominently in Rockville at one time. It, in fact, was between the courthouse and the theater, the Milo Theater. The Milo later became the Villa Theater. And those are actually three characters from the movie going to see a movie at the Villa Theater, and then the Villa later screened this movie, showed it to patrons. And a number of scenes of old Rockville. So they're almost out of the picture. G.C. Murphy's store, maybe you remember, in downtown Rockville before it moved to Congressional Plaza Shopping Center. This is before urban renewal in Rockville, when most of the downtown business district was in fact demolished to make way for a new Rockville. Maybe you remember Rockville Mall, indoor mall. Well, it didn't really take off. A local Rockvillian had a part in the movie, playing Warren Beatty's grandmother, Lucy Smith. Lived in this house, and in fact the scene was filmed in this house, which is still on Forest Avenue in Rockville. Lucy Smith grew up in this house. Her father, Edwin Smith, was an astronomer, an official of what is now the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and he built a rudimentary observatory in his backyard. It was sort of a precursor for the Gaithersburg International Latitude Observatory, which is now a national landmark. This was one of 6 similar observatories, late 1800s, built about the same latitude all across the globe to make comparisons in observing the night sky. And among the discoveries made at these observatories was learning that the Earth wobbles on its axis. So indeed, a National Historic Landmark today, as is this building. It's called Frida's Cottage, and that brings us back to the film Lilith, because it was where the very prominent psychiatrist at Chestnut Lodge, Dr. Frida Fromm Reichman, lived and saw patients. And one of her patients wrote a novel, I Never Promised You a Rose Garden. And in the novel was Dr. Freed. Some people think a takeoff on Dr. Freud, Sigmund Freud, but no, Dr. Frida Fromm Reichman, later made into a movie. And I'll show the preview, as they were called, not trailers in those days.
Her name is Deborah. Her age is 16. She lives here, but her allegiance is to the world of her fantasies.
I don't belong to you. I don't belong to anybody in this world.
I Never Promised You a Rose Garden, the monumental best-selling novel of a young girl's journey from madness to sanity, is now a triumphant new film. Brilliant young actress Kathleen Quinlan is Deborah.
You can trust me. I won't betray you.
Bibi Anderson is Dr. Freed, the one person who stands between Deborah and destruction.
I tried to recognize it and come to terms with it.
What if I'm not strong enough to do that?
You are strong enough.
You can turn me off, you know. You can go off with your friends and write another paper on schizophrenia and get an award for it.
And indeed, Dr. Frida Fromm Reichman, a pioneering psychiatrist, wrote the definitive textbook on psychotherapy at the time. Another short clip explaining where the title comes from.
What can you promise? Talk to me about getting well and coming back to reality? What good is your reality if it doesn't do anything about people like Hobbes?
I never promised you a rose garden.
So those are what I call the Big Seven, all made in Montgomery County, at least in part. I'll now turn to 7 others in which Montgomery County has, well, you might say a bit part, that is, just some scenes shot in Montgomery County or supposedly set in Montgomery County. Starting here with 2, some scenes shot at houses in Chevy Chase. All the President's Men, a house on East Avenue. Unfortunately, that house has been replaced. You know, we have a lot of teardowns in Montgomery County. But for True Lies, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as a secret agent for a counterterrorism organization, though his wife thinks he's a software salesman. They live here in this house on Aspen Street off of Connecticut Avenue in Chevy Chase, though their hometown is never identified as such. And here's a shot of the house in the movie. So that's Chevy Chase. Another house in Bethesda appears in Random Hearts. That stars Harrison Ford as a D.C. police sergeant who rather implausibly lives in this house in Bethesda. And there again is a shot of Harrison Ford running into his house in Bethesda. Speaking of Bethesda, in Pelican Brief, a portion of the garage chase scene was filmed in Bethesda, perhaps in a building replaced now by the new Marriott headquarters. I can't confirm exactly where it was shot, but in Bethesda. And also, speaking of Bethesda, 2 films supposedly set there, but not filmed there. The one on the left, The Pacifier, well, some goofs in both of those. The local bus is in The Pacifier, appears, but is not either the ride-on bus or Metro bus. And in the film on the right, there's a hospital scene. It's identified as Bethesda Memorial Hospital, otherwise, I guess, known as Suburban Hospital. Borat, it's about a visiting foreign television reporter. There's a scene that takes place right here in Gaithersburg at Criswell Chevrolet, starring one of the actual salesman at the time, and his name was Jim Sell. Quite appropriate. Another film here about an aspiring actress who, her father passes away, and the burial scene takes place in the cemetery behind a very rural church out in Boyd's Presbyterian Church. There's the scene in the movie, and here's a look at the front and the back of the church in real life, so to speak. Man of the Year stars Robin Williams. As you see, he's a comedian, host of a satirical television news program, decides to run for president. Not really qualified to be president. Well, I'll leave it there. It shot mainly in Washington, of course, having to do with the presidency, also Canada, our 51st state, I hear. But at least one scene was shot in Silver Spring. But there's a stronger Silver Spring connection because Louis Black also is in the movie. His role is as the producer of that TV show that the comedian is on. More about Louis Black coming up. But first, one other big-name movie with unusual, really tangential connection to Montgomery County, but one that I think's worth mentioning. It's Oprah in Beloved, and the connection here is the Button Farm Living History Center. It's on Black Rock Road. I already mentioned Black Rock Road. Remember Black Rock Mill in Seneca Creek State Park and the Blair Witch Project. So who knew that Black Rock Road is really the Hollywood Boulevard of Montgomery County? Well, the connection here is the Button Farm is the brainchild of Tony Cohen, truly a Montgomery County treasure. It's a working antebellum, pre-Civil War farm to give a sense of slavery. And Oprah was his guest. Tony created this setting to prepare Oprah for her role in that movie, to get a sense of slavery. It was, he says, it was really it's supposed to be a 2-day experience, 48-hour immersion experience. But, and afterwards, she told me that I needed to offer this to other people. So he has created this as a historical site, a working farm also. But he says that It was so realistic an experience that after one day, Oprah said she had had enough. This site, like many historical sites, open the last weekend in every June for free every year, last weekend in June, and a great opportunity to visit historic sites around the county. So just wanted to squeeze that in there. All right, Act 2 here now. Stars who grew up in Montgomery County, and this is where the Silver Spring connection really shines. First, do you recognize this actress, a 63 graduate of Montgomery Blair, grew up in half of the house shown here in the late 50s, early 60s? Yes, Goldie Hawn. You recognize this young lad, grew up in Silver Spring, attended Blair High School, but did not graduate. Sylvester Stallone. In The Parent Trap, one remake of the movie, Lisa Ann Walter stars as the nanny. She also grew up in Silver Spring, did graduate from Blair, 1979. Also in the movie is a very young Lindsay Lohan. But here's Lisa Ann Walter's Blair High School yearbook photograph. And yes, indeed, Lewis Black grew up in Silver Spring, well, a little to the north in the White Oak area in this house. And so he actually graduated from Springbrook, again, north of Silver Spring. Lewis Black, mostly a stand-up comedian, but some movie connections that I'll explain. He has some later ties to Montgomery County. For example, in 2021, he spoke at a career panel sponsored by Montgomery County Public Schools, giving advice to high school students. And coincidentally, one of his films that he appeared in, it's called Accepted. It's about high school grads who were rejected at every college that they applied to. So they themselves decide to start a college. And Lewis Black plays the uncle of one of the kids who acts in two sense of the word, as the dean of that college. And it's all an act. But a more recent tie is that he appeared at the Fillmore in entertainment venue in Silver Spring, and he's reminiscing here in this clip, carefully edited clip, if you don't know anything about Lewis Black. Yes, about every other word. Well, anyway, he's reminiscing about Silver Spring when he was in high school. He starts out here remembering what the venue, Fillmore, what its earlier incarnation was.
We're inside what used to be a J.C. Penney. There was a J.C. Penney. There was a Heck Company. There was a little tavern that had burgers. There was Giffords where you could get really good ice cream. There was a Crisfield seafood. Okay? And seriously, that was about it. All right? And what is that? What is that?
Okay, I hope some of you remembered the Fillmore was indeed once J.C. Penney's store, and he mentioned the Heck Company. This was the first Heck Company store outside of its flagship store downtown on F Street. Little tavern where you could get hamburgers before McDonald's. Gifford's ice cream store, also in Bethesda. I think they had one other store. And Crisfield's restaurant, you may remember it closed last year after a long run. The Heck Company is now sort of an indoor mall, the building anyway. Okay, another stand-up comedian, Dave Chappelle, grew up at least as a youngster in Silver Spring, and then his family moved to D.C. So he's actually a graduate of D.C.'s quite well-known Duke Ellington School of the Arts. And again, mostly a stand-up comedian, but he did appear, leading role in this movie. And Silver Spring, Ben Stein, also a graduate of Blair. And he appeared as as it says here, monotone teacher in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, calling the roll.
Bueller.
For the AWOL student.
Bueller.
A number of connections to stars I already mentioned, since he grew up in Silver Spring. Coincidence that graduated in the same class as Carl Bernstein. Not a movie star, but a star in a different way. And a coincidence in that with Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, of course, their reporting led to the downfall of President Nixon. And as you see, Ben Stein later was a speechwriter for Richard Nixon. He had quite a colorful career. A very smart guy, Yale Law School valedictorian. Daniel Stern attended BCC, dropped out. Of course, he was one of the notorious sticky bandits in Home Alone. And actually, there's the IMDb rating for it. It's actually 0.1 points higher than Philomena, which I said was the highest, but Philomena shot in Montgomery County. This one not shot in Montgomery County. But later, Daniel Stern appeared on the television show Wonder Years. He was the narrator, an unseen character who would often reminisce about his school days, including a music teacher, Mr. Frace, who was indeed the music teacher at the old Leland Junior High School in Bethesda. I got this nugget from a former classmate of his at Leland Junior High School. Bethesda again, and more television than films. Do you recognize Julia Louis-Dreyfus? She is a graduate of Halton Arms. Mostly, I think, known for television, but she's appeared in a number of films. Rotten Tomatoes says these are her 2 best films. Again, more TV than films. Jonathan Banks, graduate of Northwood High School. Chris Cormack, graduate of Magruder, both television and film. Also, Magruder, Jason Kravitz, television and movies. So Wikipedia says best known for TV series, ABC's The Practice. But he got his start at Roundhouse Theater in Bethesda. And he later was the high school Magruder graduation speaker in 2018. His advice to the grads: you are the main character in your own play. Rewrite it as many times as you want, or perhaps as many times as you need to. These 2 actors both appeared in the series Ghosts, and they were both graduates of Wooten High School. Now, strictly television, Chris Van Dusen, graduate of Watkins Mill High School. And strictly TV, Darren Star, not a star in the sense of a performer, but the creator of a number of popular TV series. He was a graduate of Winston Churchill High School, the end of the decade that I graduated at the beginning of. In Potomac, of course, and best known perhaps for Beverly Hills 90210, which actually was almost Potomac 20854. Darren Star used the working title Potomac 20854 before its now iconic title was settled on. So speaking of Potomac, of course, and we're into television, just quickly, got to mention the Real Housewives of Potomac. Very little actual filming in Potomac, but here's a map of a number of filming spots for the Housewives of Potomac here in around Montgomery County, and shopping a big deal, so they have been in Gaithersburg at the Kentlands to do some shopping. Well, more serious note, speaking of actual shooting locations, And there were many in Montgomery County when the Beltway snipers terrorized the area, October 2002. There are 2 movies about that, mostly filmed elsewhere, but of course set, at least in part, in Montgomery County. The one on the left there, mostly about the police chief at the time, maybe you remember, Chief Charles Moose. And the film on the right there, mostly about the 2 perpetrators. The most recent film about Montgomery County is a new documentary, Ain't No Back to a Merry-Go-Round, about the 1960 civil rights protest at the Glen Echo Amusement Park, back when it was an amusement park, and excluded black people. I'll play the trailer here, just a portion of it.
Fun is where you find it.
We're going to have one swing at time at Glen Echo, the amusement park in Washington.
Glen Echo Amusement Park.
This park is segregated. You're not trespassing. May I ask your race?
My race, I belong to the human race.
Oh,
Member of the human race.
I really wanted to ride on the
Civil rights protest you may not know, but of course here in Montgomery County, I hope you do know about it. And there will be a free screening of this, the entire documentary. It's making the rounds of independent film festivals. But next Monday, at 7 o'clock, it's going to be shown at Black Rock Center for the Arts in Germantown. So from the newest, that is, to the oldest, one of the earliest silent movies made by a Thomas Edison company, filming a barge as it's going down the C&O Canal. So it passes through Montgomery County. Again, a look at Great Falls as it passes through on its way to D.C., ultimately tying up after a 7-day trip in, of course, Georgetown. And just like to point out that Georgetown was once part of Montgomery County before the nation's capital was carved out in 1790. So since I mentioned Silver Spring a lot, I want to mention the Art Deco Theater there, still going strong. We actually have 3 old theaters, grand old theaters, still existing. The AFI Silver is the only one still showing movies. This is the Flower in Tacoma Park. It's recently been preserved, and it's going to adaptive reuse, as they say, being turned into commercial space, but the marquee there is still displaying. The Druid up in Damascus, unfortunately, is sitting vacant, and the Bethesda Theater, now a supper club with live acts. So I'll end going back to the only one of the movies that really made extensive use of Montgomery County. That was Lilith. And when it was filmed in 1964, it was, as I said, a big deal, as this clip from Paths to the Present shows.
The making of this film left a lasting imprint. Countless newspaper stories covered all aspects of the process. Crowds flocked to each location hoping to be discovered or to get a glimpse of the stars. Locals, tapped to be extras, became minor celebrities. And best of all, the film itself leaves a visual record showing views of our county from nearly a half-century ago.
Nearly a half-century ago when that was made. It's more than that now. So in many ways, I think perhaps more noteworthy than the movies made in Montgomery County, the movie stars that came out of Montgomery County. So thank you on behalf of Montgomery History. As I mentioned, we have history conversations, usually every Tuesday. It's a Zoom program about local history topics. If you're interested, go to the Montgomery History website, the Historical Society. You only get 1 email a week. You can get on their email list. It will tell you what the topic is for that Tuesday's history conversation, as well as a trivia question at the end of the newsletter. You can test yourself on your local knowledge of local history. Today's question, in fact, was about Asbury. and its Methodist foundings. Who was the founder of Methodism? John Wesley. That's it. No questions? I must have put you to sleep.
Hi, many years ago I attended Blair High School and went with Carl Bernstein, who wrote Watergate. He never went to college, but we went through all the classes together and became friends for many, many years. He had an interesting life. He still does. Goldie Hawn grew up not far from me and somebody else I met. I used to go shopping in her mother's store. And she was about 3 years younger, so when I was a senior, she was in her freshman year. And Sylvester Stallone went there. He went, his mother owned a beauty parlor in the heart of Silver Spring, and I used to go to her and hear all about her son. So we had several fellows who went on to become football and baseball players from Montgomery Blair for teams. So it was an interesting school, and the first play that was ever put on in any of the high schools was a Montgomery Blair called The King and I. So is there anybody there that attended Blair when any of these people were there other than myself?
You're our Blair representative. Thank you for those stories. And yes, Montgomery Blair, one of the stellar high schools back in the day and still today. You mentioned Carl Bernstein. He, a couple years ago, wrote his autobiography, and he admits that it was a struggle getting through high school. A connection with Bob Woodward to Montgomery County. He was a reporter for the Montgomery County Sentinel for a year before he went to the Washington Post. He actually, that was he was at the Sentinel in 1972. Watergate was, the reporting was 1973. He had applied to the Washington Post. They said, well, you really don't have enough experience, so go get some journalism experience somewhere and come back and apply again. So that's what he did. Crossed the line here into Montgomery County and reporter for the old Montgomery County Sentinel.
This is not a question. It's a big thank you for giving so much wonderful color to our area. I loved the way you brought in so much of an industry that I didn't really understand had made any, it just never occurred to me there was such a connection with so many brilliant people in the movie industry. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. This is what we do for the Speakers Bureau, talk about our county, and it's quite fascinating history. The county was formed 1776, so next year we are marking our 250th year. We, along with the country, actually. Country, July 4th, 1776. Montgomery County formed September, so we're a few months younger.
I was just wondering if you had any idea why there hadn't been many movies made here recently.
That's a good question. I was thinking about that on the way over. Our county government does have a movie bureau. It's a very small office in which they assist movie companies when they do come here to make movies. It's a boost to the economy, and there are film bureaus in a lot of states wanting to have movies shot there because not only boost to the economy, but there's the sort of glory of appearing in a movie. But none recently, as you point out. I don't really know why. They should come here to Asbury and play readers. Be here for the first week in December, along with the movie cameras.
I wonder if we could get that movie on Glen Echo Park here at Asbury, shown on AVTV.
You probably could. It's a local filmmaker, and the website is just ain'tnoback.org or maybe com, not sure which. I think she would probably be very much interested showing it to a very receptive audience, many of whom I'm sure remember the protests there.
I think I've seen part of that, at least, or something similar at Glen Echo Park a few years ago. I used to live near there. I have a second question. You mentioned a director or producer who graduated from Walt Whitman High School early in your talk. Do you remember a young man that was interviewed on the movie clip? I
don't know of any who graduated from Walt Whitman.
Oh, I thought you mentioned
I
Walt
mentioned BCC,
Yeah.
well, of course, Blair, Northwood, Magruder, Church. I don't remember Walt Whitman, though. And I should give credit here. I'm perhaps not the most likely person to be giving this talk because I'm not really much of a movie buff, but a good friend of mine is, and he gave me a lot of this information. I said, really, you should be doing this talk. I mentioned that because he is a graduate of Walt Whitman High School. And so if there was a movie star that came out of he has a lot of Walt Whitman pride, and he was on the It's Academic team, for example. If there was a movie star coming out of Walt Whitman, he would have been pounding it into my head.
It wasn't a movie star. I thought it was a director.
Oh, the director was Churchill High School.
Oh,
that was help me here. Darren Starr, yes, thank you. Because and the connection there, Churchill being in Potomac, and Beverly Hills was almost Potomac 20854.
Just one more. Did you have another question?
I just came to, mine was Ben Stein graduated Blair in 60, and he was on TV. He used to be Ben Stein's Money, and so I don't know if anybody ever saw it on
Yes,
TV.
I mentioned him in connection with Ferris Bueller's Day Off, so he would fall into the category of TV and movies. There's a lot of crossover, of course. But wanted to focus mainly on the Hollywood movies. So thank you all very much. Pleasure being back.